There you go. Thank you.
Yep.
So this meeting is being recorded to help us take notes and to make the video available later to people interested in the presentation who are not able to attend. I had a few folks that said they would like to attend but couldn't. It would be appreciated for everyone to put your first and last names, which actually I don't think we need to do that. We don't have very many people on here, so yeah, let's go ahead. If you can, in the chat box, if you can put your first and last name, excuse me, and where you're from, that would be helpful. The purpose of this meeting is to collect feedback on challenges and opportunities for the New Hampshire 9 corridor. Our schedule for completing the update to the long-range transportation plan is July of 2023. So Andrew and I will be doing a lot of data collection. We'll be doing more of these presentations on each of the corridors. So that's why it'll take us to 2023. SWRPC is one of 9 regional planning commissions. One of the roles here is to create and update the long-range transportation plan for the region. Long-range transportation planning seeks to better understand the current conditions and the future demands for transportation and to help us address the needs for the population of this area. Among other information, the plan contains a vision, goals, and objectives, data and information about existing conditions, documentation of transportation challenges and opportunities, and also there's a section that documents planned projects and currently unfunded projects. So this map is pretty. What it's showing you is all of the corridors within our region. Back in 2014, at the encouragement of New Hampshire DOT, SWRPC changed its long-range transportation plan approach to more of a corridor approach, which is what we're doing today. And this is a sub-regional approach rather than a system-wide approach that looked at all 34 towns. In our plan, SWRPC identified 8 major transportation corridors, as you can see by the color codes. These corridors connect major destinations within the region, and they connect Southwest New Hampshire to surrounding regions and neighboring states of Vermont and Massachusetts. A corridor analysis approach has a number of benefits over the system approach. For example, corridors tend to mirror the predominant movement of people, goods, and information and regionally significant economic activity. Corridors are a scale with which to engage regional stakeholders that feel more comfortable offering and sharing feedback on the regional or local matters that they are more intimately familiar with. Corridor level analysis encourages a more complete investigation of non-transportation factors that impact our transportation system, such as land use and economic development planning, which tend to be administered at the local level. New Hampshire 9 East is one of the 8 corridors in the region, and the one that we'll be focusing on this evening. And it includes the transportation assets in the towns of Alstead, Antrim, Gilsum, Keene, Langdon, Marlow, Nelson, Roxbury, Stoddard, Sullivan, and Windsor. So it stretches the whole distance from Keene all the way to Antrim. Let's see, New Hampshire East Corridor is one of our most rural corridors in the Southwest region. 8 of the 12 communities that I just mentioned have populations of less than 1,000. Each corridor represented in the Southwest Connects includes a backbone arterial highway, which you can see by the darker, the bolder line, as well as a network of other arterials and collector highways linking to the backbone. So those would be these smaller ones up here that look like veins or smaller tree roots. All highways in New Hampshire 9 East network are shown in purple. The roads shown in other colors are neighboring corridor systems. The collector arterials. So the main artery of this corridor is Route 9, obviously, and it extends from Keene to Antrim for approximately 14.4 miles. The other arterials and collector highways that are part of the New Hampshire 9 East corridor include 10 North, New Hampshire 12A, parts of it, and New Hampshire 31. And then also New Hampshire 123. So that's why some of the communities, I think we have somebody here from Langdon, you know, it is a part because it's got a stretch up here on 123 and 12A both. This next slide is a safety map. It shows the general location of crashes and the level of severity. Red is a fatality and orange is a serious injury. At each fatality crash location, there may be more than one fatality, and there may also be serious injuries. So, you know, it's not accurate in telling you specific information. It's just like this one here in Halstead. It just shows that there was at least one fatality here. There might have been more than that, and there might also have been a serious injury. Same with the serious injury crash points. There may be multiple serious injuries, but it would not include a fatality. As a hilly, curvy, high-speed rural highway with occasional bad weather, New Hampshire 9 East has experienced 10 crashes involving highway fatalities. 9 of those were in Stoddard. So this is our real hot spot here, especially this curve. 38 crashes involving incapacitating injuries also occurred in this on this corridor. This was all done between 2002 to 2010. There are areas in the arterial highways with fatalities and serious injuries, such as Alstead, the one that I showed you previously, Gilsum, and one in Stoddard further in. As I mentioned, there's 11.4 miles of highway between I-91 and 89 that is not protected by state limited or controlled access regulations. So that's including the other portion of 9. It's the whole distance. And let's see. An SWRPC New Hampshire 9 corridor study produced in 2006 estimated that up to 62 million square feet of commercial land could be available for development on this stretch of highway, which could impede regional mobility if it's not carefully planned. So, you know, I've heard different towns that would like to see some development happening along here. If there is, it should be carefully managed because you know, we could lose the mobility that we've got there now. New Hampshire 9 parallels some brooks. There's Otter Brook and the North Branch River that are limited in their capacity to handle severe storm events, and it may impact highway and bridge infrastructure if it reaches its full capacity. So this slide shows the whole corridor, the whole 9 corridor. Doesn't quite go all the way to through Chesterfield and Brattleboro. So in this 9 East and 9 West, it connects 7 municipalities, which would be Chesterfield, Keene, Roxbury, Sullivan, Nelson, Stoddard, and Antrim in our region. Hillsborough is outside of our region. Although New Hampshire 9 hosts local and interstate traffic, Trips for commuting, shopping, medical appointments, and freight movements demonstrate that the traffic on the facility is overwhelmingly regional. Many SWRPC towns use the New Hampshire 9 corridor for reaching Brattleboro and I-91 points north and south to Springfield and Lebanon, whereas the 9 East are often traveling the east-west direction to reach destinations such as Concord, Manchester, and Portsmouth. The other towns not directly on the corridor also use New Hampshire 9 for faster east-west travel needs. This is called a commuting diagram that shows the inflow, outflow of work. The majority of the towns in the corridor are communities with primarily rural residential housing and very few jobs or commercial development. 8 of the 12 communities in the corridor have a ratio of 5 or more housing units for every job in their community. So they're pretty much commuting outside of their town. They may still be staying within the corridor, but they're commuting outside of their town and using the corridor. Keene is the top workplace, obviously, to demonstrate workplace destination for most communities, as well as the top destination for shopping, medical services, and other basic needs. So what this image shows is this number here, 11,552. These are people who work in the corridor, but they live outside of it. So they're using the corridor in some sense to get to work. This number here, 6,762, these are people that live and work in the corridor. And then this number, 9,171, these are people that live in the corridor, but they work outside of it. So again, they still have to use the corridor. So this picture, one of the things we need to look at is transportation options. And this picture is to remind us that while we predominantly use cars and trucks as our primary means of transportation, there are other ways to get there from here. This is a photo taken in Marlow before our modern day horseless carriages were invented. I thought it was a pretty cool slide. So the remote and rural nature of the corridor and corridor residents' dependence on long distance travel for basic needs makes these communities experience some of the highest household transportation costs in the Southwest region. Seniors, youth, and low-income populations are disproportionately impacted because of a lack of other transport alternatives or in-town community resources. In fact, the average transportation costs are expected to exceed housing costs in Alsted, Gilsum, Langdon, Sullivan, and Windsor. So here's a table of housing and transportation costs. Due to the rural character of the nature, it has a higher percentage of monthly transportation costs, which puts a burden on residents to pay other bills. In general, it's recommended that housing costs should be no more than 30% of the income to make it be considered affordable to live in. When you combine that with the high transportation costs, the corridor average monthly cost for housing and transportation is 51.8%. And as you can see, the community with the highest housing and transportation costs is Antrim. And the community with lowest housing and transportation costs is Keene. For obvious transportation commuting reasons. So at the end of the day, we have to think, who are we planning transportation for? And the answer is people. On this slide, SWRPC shows segments of the population that live on the corridor, because different groups of people tend to have different transportation needs, or can be seen as representing a specific transportation market. Some groups don't drive, some have less resources, such as money or time, and some have distinct lifestyles that separate them from others in terms of transportation preferences. 17% of the corridor population is made up of youth, and only a small population of that can drive. In this, for youth, we consider it 17 and under, so 16 and 17-year-olds can drive. The percentage of young adults is 29%. This is largely driven by the higher learning institutions based in Keene. And Keene sees 34% of young adults. So they're higher than average. Middle age. So also there's, with young adults, one of the things that we've noted is there's some evidence that millennials are less interested in owning a car and more interested in having other transportation options. The percentage of middle-aged people is 35% in the corridor. Keene's young adults population drive this number down somewhat. This is population tends to demand higher mobility and transportation flexibility, because most, during this age is when you typically have children. Today's senior make up about 19% of the corridor population. Alstead is, so the following towns are higher than that average. Alstead has 25%, Surrey's 23%, Stoddard's 23%, Gilsum's 22%, and Nelson is 22% also. Let's see what's next here. Low income. So 17% of the population is considered low income within the corridor. Low income populations can be very sensitive to transportation expenses. Single parent families, 27% of all families living in the corridor are headed by single parents. Single parent households tend to need flexible transportation options to deal with time constraints. And also individuals with disabilities make up 13% of the corridor population. Gilsum and Keene have a slightly higher than average with 17% and 14%. Population and projections. Population increases also have an impact on the corridor. This graph shows population projections until 2040. There's projected to be a decline in the number of residents in 3 of the corridor towns, Alstead, Roxbury, and Sullivan. However, there's an expected overall increase of 635 people in the corridor by 2040. So as these numbers increase, so will the number of trips generated in and through the corridor. So if you pair this slide with the previous slide on the diverse populations, it helps us to anticipate the varying needs of transportation options. Some would say 634 people by 2040 isn't much. And, overall it's not, but when you consider adding those additional cars, trucks, buses, whatever, it is having a slight impact on the corridor. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew, and he's going to get you to answer some questions. So before we do that, does anybody have any questions on any of the slides that I just mentioned?
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
All right, we're gonna have a discussion now. We have 4 topics. And before we get into them, we'll just say local input is important to us for transportation planning. We want your feedback, and we are planning to use it when we update the long-range transportation plan that Lisa mentioned. The feedback we're looking for is primarily on state routes and state maintained routes. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, so not just Route 9, but also the other roads that show in purple there. So 123, 12A, 123A, as well as some of the non-numbered state routes like Gilsum Road, Surrey Road, Gilsum Center, a few other, the roads that are shown in purple there. So the 4 topics that we have are safety, natural and human caused hazards, transportation options, and infrastructure. And we're going to spend about 5 minutes on each topic, and we encourage you to share issues and problems, but solutions as well. And we're interested to hear what you think. All right, safety. What are safety concerns that you are seeing within the corridor? And people have shared dangerous roadways, intersections, crossings. Those are examples that we've heard before. But what are safety concerns that you have, and any potential solutions you have to fix a safety concern?
Yeah, hi, this is Jim Creighton. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, the one thing, and I happen to live on Route 9. Primary issue there is speed, and the thing I've seen worked well in reducing it is the speed radars, that show you that you're going too fast. We had one of them up several years ago, but it broke pretty quickly. But that, I think an investment there would be helpful. If you look at the number of guardrails that have been replaced on Route 9 between Hillsborough and Keene, or 89 and Keene, it's pretty remarkable how many people are hitting the barriers. So just a thought to me. The biggest thing is speed, and a possible solution is more of those radar, you're going too fast, LED lights. Over.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. And what town was that in? You said you had some speed radars up already, or
yeah, that was westbound on 9, Hillsborough, just prior to Route 31, Cat's Corner.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
That's a 55 to 45. Cat's Corner has had several accidents, but that was put up about 6 years ago, and they took it down within the last couple of years. It wasn't working. It worked for about 6 months, and that was it.
Yep, I remember seeing that. Does anyone else have safety concerns that they want to share, or possible solutions?
What about the area that had the multiple crashes right in here in Stoddard? Any suggestions on what can be done there? Okay.
I would say that the hill that leads into Gilsum, I forget the name of it at the moment. The road gets a little narrow, and it's also, if there's weather, that's a kind of a road that makes me want to slow down.
Route 10?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, want to move on to the next topic? And Lisa, do you mind the next slide for me? Thank you.
That's my cue.
Natural and human caused disasters, natural hazards that impact transportation, such as flooding, Are there areas that are also vulnerable to human caused, disasters like spills from hazardous waste that's transported by vehicle? And are there any problems that you all are aware of that want to share?
Anybody know where this picture's from? Is Alstead.
Oh,
And what year
Yeah.
was that, Lisa?
This was 2005, I think, or 2006.
yeah.
It's amazing.
And that was caused by flash flooding?
It's caused by, Lou, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a dam breaking in Langdon, and I don't know.
It was actually a culvert that plugged up coming out of Lake Warren.
Ah,
And it backed up to the point that it created a small lake. And when it overflowed, it sent roughly a 35-foot wall of water cascading down the mountain.
yeah.
So it wasn't even from a major rain event. It was just,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a major rain event.
so had it not been for that culvert, the road would have likely drained okay, but culvert failed and the road failed. Looks like.
Yeah, it was an overflow from Lake Warren that went down into the lowland, and they had built a road with a 10 or 12-foot culvert in it, and the culvert became plugged. And the rains continued and started to overflow and washed out the culvert, and consequently, everything let go at once, killed some people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. It doesn't take much water to really rip through a road, and drainage is very important, and that certainly illustrates it. And in addition to the loss of life, which is tragic, like this is millions and millions of dollars of damage as well, just to the roadway alone. So
Yeah, this swept houses right off their foundation.
oh wow.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do here at SWRPC is we work with towns on their hazard mitigation plans and also their emergency operations plans. And culverts are usually the one thing that I ask a lot of questions about, because it is something that's in certain circumstances, it is an action that FEMA will pay for. But from what I hear from some of the towns is that's not necessarily true. There has to be a threshold of what they'll allow. But anyhow, it is one funding source. I know that we also do culvert studies for our towns, and that will help to identify where the culverts are, the road stream crossings actually, and what the condition is. It's not an engineering study because we don't have engineers on staff, but it does have some good information that at least the towns can use to ask, to look for capital improvements on. So,
Could I elaborate on the culvert
yes,
assessment,
please
Lisa?
do. Yes.
Yeah, the culvert assessment, part of it involves measuring the dimensions of the culvert and the stream itself, and it's designed to tell you, it's called the geomorphic compatibility. So is the culvert large enough to withstand the water that's gonna the water that it would take from that particular stream. And it's called the geomorphic compatibility rating. So it can help you identify culverts that can cause problems like this. And it will also give you an ecological rating too, because culverts restrict aquatic organisms' movements, channeling the water, the fish and the organisms can't get upstream anymore. So follow up with Lisa and I if you want to know more about a culvert assessment program at SWRPC. And want to move on to the next one. Okay, transportation.
Let's hang on a second here. So aside from flooding, are there other natural hazards that you're concerned about anywhere along the corridor? This isn't a corridor that we typically see, falling rock or anything like that, although the Route 10 area has, going into Gilson, has some pretty steep slopes, and I do believe there's falling rock signs there. Any other type of, well, for example, hazardous material spills? Are there certain areas that you've got more concern over for truck traffic, hazardous material spills? And again, it can be on locations that aren't on the backbone of 9. It could be any of the tributaries. You see that Leslie Casey joined us from Sullivan. Thanks, Leslie, for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, we can move on then.
Okay, transportation options is the next topic. And Lisa mentioned earlier in her presentation, what the population looks like demographically. Not everyone can drive or is of driving age. And how do we meet the transportation needs for that population? What types of issues are people facing or hearing about? And are there any solutions?
Well, this picture was taken from Keene. I don't think we have that trolley bus anymore. I haven't seen it around anyhow, but this is a good walking path and biking path for folks that commute, and it is used quite often.
Andrew, this is Representative Jim Crane again. There's two things going on. One in Antrim, it's a share ride community effort where you call a central number and there's people that volunteer to drive people around, which is a very new program, but I've heard good things about it. I don't have any data to support how many rides per week or whatever, but it's a thing that we're trying to get, especially the elderly community is the one that is most in need. Hillsborough has a similar system, but it's more evolved. They have dedicated drivers. I believe they have an individual bus that drives them to various different appointments and that type of thing. Both of those initiatives, I think, are pretty, well, the one in Hillsborough I know is pretty successful. The one in Antrim is just beginning, and we'll see how that goes. But there seems to be a lot of interest from the volunteer community, and it seems to help the elderly, do their shopping or go to medical appointments or that type of thing. So it's a volunteer system that appears to be working in Hillsborough and Antrim. Over.
Thanks, Jim. Is it a local program, or because I know about the Community Volunteer Transit Company, or CVTC, that provides on-demand ride service, like you mentioned, and it's a great program. It certainly helps people, but we hear that the need is greater than the available services. So yeah.
The Antrim one The Antrim one passed at the town meeting in March. It's associated with a much larger community effort, and that is strictly Antrim's community effort. And it's attached to a lot of different assistance and expertise type of volunteerism within Antrim. The Hillsborough one, I don't know whether it's connected to the state program or not, but I know that it is local operators that help out with it.
That's great, Jim. I'm going to look into that program in Antrim. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch, I get connected with people that are running it. So if you send me an email, I get connected with them.
Yeah, that'd be great. I wonder, we have a staff member who has a position called mobility manager, and I think he'd be interested to know about that if he doesn't know about it already, I think.
Okay.
All right, does anyone have any other thoughts or comments about transportation options? All right, and Lisa, you can move to the last slide whenever you're ready. Infrastructure is our last topic, and then we'll let you go. Well, soon. What does the condition look like of transportation infrastructure from your point of view? What condition is it in? Pavement, culverts, bridges, sidewalks, overall, or like specifically even, what's the condition of pavement infrastructure?
Yeah, again, this is Representative Jim Creighton. Again, I live right on Route 9, and I really commend the Department of Transportation. I think they do a great job of, they're always repairing the culvert, they're repairing the side rails, and it seems like it's a constant effort on the asphalt. The one thing that I want to expand the question a little bit, if I could, is the commercial opportunities along Route 9 between 89 and King are exceptionally limited. And my understanding is, and I don't have a lot of expertise in this, but I have talked to people who tried to either, number one, build a business, or number two, expand a business on Route 9. And it appears that the local town planning commissions are really sensitive to any commercial development along Route 9. So there's probably 5 commercial retail establishments along that route, and I don't know how the state gets involved in that or what, but it seems like it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I know that the local planning boards will have some say in that, but I believe the state can control access to Route 9 in some areas. Is that right, Lisa? It's like it's restricted.
Right.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think one of the slides I did mention that there's 14.4 miles of unrestricted. Let's see if I can get back to that. Davey would be the right person to ask this.
Yeah, and that's actually in the long-range transportation plan. And maybe before we go, I can do a plug for the website. So the website can kind of take you to the long-range transportation plan. And I've also broken it out by corridor. So I've sort of taken the chapters for each corridor and made them into their own web page. And the plan does have a breakdown of how much of each corridor is restricted access for development by the state.
Okay. Great, thanks. I'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, on slide 4, there's 11.4 miles of frontage between I-91 and I-89 that's not protected by state limited or controlled access regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So this is Paul Roth. I'm from Dublin, but I'm on the City of Keene Energy and Climate Committee. And we're on the we have electric subcommittee, electric vehicle subcommittee. Is there any plans for any EV charging on this corridor or funds for that? I know it's not a tremendous amount of volume of traffic, but I think we're missing a lot of, I guess, infrastructure in that respect. Your comments?
I agree with you on that, and that was one of the next slide where we're going to be talking about what's missing. Why don't I go to that one right now?
Oh, there it is.
The state is developing a plan. Paul, you might know more about this, about for implementing EV charging stations across the state. So I think there will be more coming down. Like they're trying to take. They just finished the comment period and they're gathering. They're developing a plan for how they're going to deploy their resources to make EV charging stations. So I think the state's going to be making some soon, but is developing a plan to do so. And I'm sorry I don't know more about that. Lisa and I have a colleague who works on this more. And I know that he's put some blog posts on our website about it. So I can follow up with you on that and share that information.
Yeah, that and I don't know if park and rides are, I mean, you got to look at the demographics and the traffic, whether park and rides are a good thing too, because, with the limited transportation options, you can combine the EV stations with park and rides and, maybe going forward, someday we might even have electric buses. You never know.
Yeah, I hope so.
But Keene is, I think Keene's missing out on a lot of, I guess, visitors because of the lack of EV charging. I've been pushing for that for a while. They're looking at redoing their zoning and trying to actually exceed those growth numbers that you posted. So they want to actually change the minimum lot size from 5 acres to 2 acres for residential development in the rural area. And I really don't have a pulse on Dublin, one more off Route 1. But I think, for us to, grow business in New Hampshire, we really need to address, what you guys are talking about, the Route 9 access and just the safety and the mobility in this area. Because the hospital's trying to, we're trying to expand and we can't because we don't have any people to work. And housing and transportation are major issues. So kind of where I'm interested.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the questions that I have is the old abandoned rest area a lot in Antrim along the corridor. I've noticed that there's for sale signs and things a lot on there. What do you think would be a good use for that, or type of use? I think it'd be a great place for a charging station.
This is Representative Clayton again. I drive by that at least 2 or 3 times a week, and that's prime property. I mean, it's right on the North Branch River, which is Great Fishing. So, I mean, I could vision see that being used in a lot of different ways. Given the amount of traffic, it could be a restaurant, it could be a outfitter, it could be, like you said, it could be a gas station. I don't know. I mean, that to me, it's like 22 acres. That's prime land right there.
Anybody else want to give some thoughts to that? But I don't think it'll ever be a rest area again.
I am going to put our website into the chat. And we have a project website, project webpage just for this project. So if you want to read the long range transportation plan, you can read it you can get it at that site. We've got some maps and information up as well. There will be a survey on the website soon that we're going to distribute to collect more feedback on transportation. So check out our website, please.
I want to go back here for a second, Andrew. So far, Andrew and I have done presentations on New Hampshire 9 West, and now we're doing the one on the East. We will be doing the next one on Route 10 South in September, and then followed by Route 12 North and South. We'll also be doing one on 202, 101, and the 202 South. So as I mentioned earlier, there's one per month. If you're interested, want us to notify you for each of those, be happy to do that, or you can just stay informed from our website.
Mm-hmm. The website has a form you can put your email address in to stay on our email list if you would like to. And Facebook will be having posts and events about this as well.
Guys, thanks for hard work. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Does anybody have a question or comment before we say goodbye?
No, I just really appreciate you guys doing this. It's well needed, and I appreciate your hard work. Keep it up.
Thank you. Yeah, we try to do it as, I think, every 5 years or so to stay up to date with things, because it is a hot topic for sure in the region.
Yeah, I used to live in the same building you guys work in.
Ah,
Oh, did you?
Oh, wow.
I grew
So,
up right down the street from there.
So, no, I really appreciate this, and I'll be in touch. And I'll keep the Energy and Climate Committee in Keene informed of this, and I'll be a conduit to keep those guys informed too.
Thanks very much. We appreciate that.
Yep. All right. Well, everybody have a good evening. Stay safe. Appreciate it.
thanks, you too.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.